And then we had the main event. Gunther defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Bill Goldberg in Goldberg's final match. They showed highlights throughout the night of Goldberg's career. The champion entered first because this wasn't about the champion. This was really about Goldberg. It was Goldberg's night. That's what the show was sold on. And they did the traditional Goldberg entrance where they had somebody banging on the door, and the somebody was Doug Dillinger. If you watched WCW back in the day, even if you don't recognize the name, I guarantee you know who Doug Dillinger is. He was the head of security for WCW for many, many years, and they dug him up from somewhere. I don't know where he's been, but there he was. He honestly didn't look all that different from the way he looked 30 years ago. And as he used to do back in the day, he bangs on Goldberg's door. Goldberg opens the door, and he's got this whole posse around him in the hallway. And he came to the ring alone, but he walked down the hall flanked by his son Gage. Diamond Dallas Page was there. They were in Atlanta. I don't know exactly where Page lives. I know his DDPY Performance Center is in Smyrna. So, he's a Georgia guy. DDP was there. Ernest the Cat Miller was there. I don't know when the last time was I saw him. Josh Barnett was there. Doug Dillinger obviously was there. Chuck Zito was there for some reason. I'm like, holy shit, is that Chuck Zito? So Goldberg came out by himself. He was not walking well with that bad knee. That was very noticeable to me as I was watching him walk. He's got, Tanahashi has the Tanahashi knees. Looked like Goldberg had one of Tanahashi's knees. Lillian Garcia, who they brought in to do the ring announcing this weekend for Evolution, also handled the ring announcing duties for this show. They dropped the old school Madison Square Garden style microphone from the ceiling, and they did the usual title match intros. And Goldberg got a great reaction, especially since they billed him from Atlanta. The two of them locked up. Goldberg shoved Gunther to the mat, which surprised Gunther, who put a boot in Goldberg's stomach and bounced off the ropes for a shoulder tackle. Goldberg no-sold it. And Gunther started chopping him, and again, Goldberg just smiled. And he sent Gunther into the corner, and he started kicking and punching him and whipped him out and clotheslined him. And before long, though, Goldberg started favoring the knee, which he had a giant brace on. And they incorporated that into the story of the match, which I think was smart. Michael Cole did that earlier. He brought up the fact that Goldberg's been making the media rounds and doing all kinds of publicity for this show. And he's been very open talking about his body and his bad knee and his bad shoulder. But he's going to give it his all, right? So they incorporated that into the story of the match. So Gunther went up top. Goldberg went over and grabbed him. They did the Ric Flair spot where he tossed him off the top rope into the ring. And then he crouched for the spear. And Gunther senses this, and he rolls out of the ring. Goldberg follows him outside. He goes for a spear outside. Gunther sidesteps, and Goldberg goes crashing through the timekeeper's barricade. And they go to commercial. Gunther was working the knee when they came back. Goldberg threw a flurry of punches to break the hold. They start trading chops until Goldberg's knee gives out. He falls down. And Gunther starts talking shit. And he's pie-facing him. And this led to Goldberg hitting a huge spine buster out of nowhere. Gunther went to go powerbomb him. Goldberg back body dropped out of it to set up the spear. But when Gunther moved, Goldberg speared Charles Robinson instead. Poor little Nate. First John Cena murders him at Night of Champions, and now this. Robinson was the referee for Goldberg's win over Hogan at the Georgia Dome, right there in Atlanta. So it was pretty cool that he was the referee for his retirement match, at least until he got wrecked by that spear. Then it wasn't so cool. So Gunther takes advantage. He wraps Goldberg's leg around the ropes. He starts pulling at the brace, and he pulls the brace off his knee. And he starts hitting the knee with the brace. Goldberg staggers to his feet. Gunther hits him in the head with the brace. Then he goes outside. Actually, I think the brace fell out of the ring, so he went out to go get it. But he's outside the ring, and he looks over, and he notices Goldberg's son in the front row. And he's got a smirk on his face. He saunters over there. He starts jawing at him. And he gave Gage a shove. And Gage hops the barricade. Security pulls him back. Gunther climbs back up onto the apron, and he's got his back turned. This was all done as a diversion to give Goldberg a chance to recover and get in prime position for the spear. And Gunther has no idea what's about to happen here. He gets back in the ring, and Goldberg hits the spear. And after that, you know what usually follows. He sets up for one last jackhammer. And I clasped my hands together and said, please protect Gunther. Please, Lord, protect Gunther on this move. And I held my breath, but he got him up for it. He even held him there for a second or two, and he dropped him just fine. So it all worked out, but there was no referee. So now a new referee, Sean Bennett, hits the ring, but by then Gunther had recovered enough to kick out at 2. Gunther locks in the sleeper hold. Goldberg refuses to tap out. They gave him some hope spots here, but in the end, he couldn't power his way out of it, and the referee called for the stoppage as Goldberg went out, ending a 28-year career. This match, believe it or not, went 14 minutes. In his last match, Goldberg wrestled his longest singles match, since Unforgiven 2003 against Triple H when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. You'd have to go back that far. We're talking over 20 years to find a singles match this man has been in that went as long as this one did. That is insane. And Gunther carried it. I mean, you could literally see him calling spots throughout the match, but to his credit, Goldberg hung in there with him. He did what he needed to do. You know, he looked tired, but it wasn't like he was gasping for air or anything, like he was about to fucking die in the middle of the ring. And he did what he had to do. He did the spear. He did the jackhammer. This did not need to go that long. But what I'm thinking is that with Seth's match being cut short, obviously that would have gone on for several more minutes. They stretched this match here a little bit more than they otherwise were probably planning to. And it all worked out okay in the end. But as far as like, why the hell would they put Goldberg in a 15-minute match? That has to be why. Because the match that came before went short. And you could only stretch in between both matches for so long. So I wouldn't be shocked if we find out that, you know, they had some time added to their match here in the main event. As far as the match itself and Goldberg's performance, you know what? This could have gone very badly. This could have been a horrible performance for Goldberg. And on some level, I would have felt bad for the guy just because I know why he was so adamant about wanting this retirement match. He was not happy about the match with Roman Reigns 3 years ago. He had COVID. He wasn't ready for it. He found out on 2 weeks' notice. And it just wasn't a very good match. So he didn't want that to be his last match. He didn't want that to be the lasting vision that people had of him. So it was important for him to go out there and not embarrass himself. He did not go out there and embarrass himself. He was better than I was expecting him to be. He wasn't, I'm not saying he was out there, you know, like fucking Kenny Omega or fucking Lou Thesz or anything like that. He was Goldberg, as Goldberg as he could be at the age of 58 with the injuries that he has. He did all of the spots that you would expect him to do. He looked fine. I mean, he didn't, you know, botch anything or stumble over himself or fall out of the ring or, you know, anything like that. This match was better, frankly, than it had any right to be. And I'll give Goldberg some credit for that, but also give a huge heaping credit to Gunther because he played his role perfectly. Again, you could tell just watching him. He was calling the spots each time as they went along. And they put together what I thought was a perfectly solid main event. It was not a bad match. It was not a great match. It was a perfectly solid match. And frankly, I think also a fitting send-off for Goldberg. I'm sure he was pleased with the match. He should be pleased with the match. I don't think it could have gone any better than it did. When the match was over, they went to one more commercial break. They come back. Goldberg is in the ring. He is surrounded by friends and family, and Michael Cole is there and asks him a question. Now, this is his big speech, right? Because this is his big finale. And he thanks them all. He said that he loved the fans and thanked them, and they went off the air. Right as he was about to get going in the middle of his retirement speech, and he was really going to get into the meat and potatoes of it, they go off the air. Now, first of all, the impact of the finish of the match, right? The finish of what was supposed to be this big retirement match was completely negated by them immediately going to commercial break right after the match ended. Then they come back from commercial. They give Goldberg all of 30 seconds to speak before cutting away. And it's not even appropriate to say they gave him 30 seconds. What happened was, it's network television. They have a hard out at 10 p.m. In some markets, they even have the news, the 10 o'clock news, right? This is not like a fucking basketball game where when the game's over, the news begins. Like, no, it's an entertainment show and they have a hard end at 10 o'clock and that's just the way it is, whether they like it or not. But it's just funny to me that the one time in 28 years, Goldberg actually has something to say and he gets cut off. I have no idea why they couldn't continue this on the Peacock feed of the show. They have since posted the full 10-minute segment up on their YouTube channel, finally. They did that a few hours ago. And again, it's a very nice speech where he was just very thankful and appreciative and talked about treating others the way that you would want to be treated and showing respect to other human beings. And he was very happy that all of his friends and family could be there with him. Cody Rhodes came out. He got in the ring. He said some words as well about Goldberg. So it was a very nice thing. It's too bad it couldn't air on TV, but I was waiting for the full thing to be posted on YouTube, and if you have not seen it, that is where you can go find it. I know things went haywire with the Rollins injury. It clearly threw the timing for the rest of the show. The next 30 or 40 minutes, it completely threw the timing of the show off, and you really couldn't predict that something like that would happen. But I'm watching this, and him get cut off after 30 seconds of speaking. The man just wrestled his final match, and I'm like, they're really going to put John Cena's retirement in December on Saturday night's main event? I mean, it's not confirmed that it'll be on Saturday night's main event, but the belief is that that's exactly where it's going to be airing. And I just think that's fucking terrible. I said this at the beginning of the year, even before he started the retirement tour. You can get an entire special on Netflix or Peacock devoted entirely to John Cena's final match. You could build an entire show around it as a streaming special. They put that thing on Saturday night's main event, it is going to be butchered. So I hope it doesn't happen on that show. I really, really hope it doesn't go down on that show. But here you had Gunther beating Goldberg. It was the only outcome to this match. Anything other than Gunther beating Goldberg would have been fucking dumb. Could they have done a Money in the Bank cash in? Sure. But I would not have had Goldberg win first and then have Seth Rollins cash in. And by the way, for people thinking, well, Rollins was probably going to cash in, but they called an audible because he got hurt. Apparently, the plan was not for him to cash in his Money in the Bank. He was supposed to beat LA Knight, but the plan was not for him to cash in last night. So I think that's from PW Insider. But yeah, I mean, anything other than Gunther winning would have been just a fucking gigantic mistake. So they went with the right outcome here. Gunther has now retired Goldberg. Now imagine him retiring John Cena too at the end of the year. Imagine being able to put those two things on your resume. I retired Goldberg and John Cena in the same year. Because when we make the list of potential final opponents for John Cena, Gunther has to be on that list. I don't know who it's going to be. They've already done the CM Punk match. They've already done the Randy Orton match. I don't see it being AJ Styles. It's not going to be like Styles or Sheamus. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be Kevin Owens or any of those people that he's been in the ring with before. Gunther it may not be Seth Rollins now either. Gunther is probably the name that I would have at the top of my list as the likeliest final opponent for John Cena. I mean, who else would really be in serious consideration for it? You know, I mean, would they do a Braun Breaker and have him wrestle one of the new guys with the idea that, you know, he puts them over at the end? I mean, they already did that at WrestleMania with Austin Theory a few years ago. That didn't really work out too well. But I mean, I suppose you could do that. You've got Drew McIntyre. Maybe he's an option. But Gunther is probably, in my mind, the likeliest choice. So he may well end this year having retired both of these men. I think that's a very real possibility.